December 3rd, 1831, Sarah Mapps Douglas and a small group of black women, co-founders of the first known book club, dare publish their Constitution in the Liberator, an anti-slavery newspaper, inspire other women to do the same, launch the women's rights movement, and ignite women's political activism. Later joined by white women like Lucretia Mott, co-convener of the 1848 Women's Rights Convention at Seneca Falls, they host an anti-slavery, pro-women's rights conference, are nearly killed for their courage, then erased from history. December 3rd, 2024. 193 years later to the day, in the wake of Kamala Harris's history-making vice presidency and presidential campaign, where do we go from here? To move forward, as it is said in the Akan language of West Africa, we must go back. SANKOFA. Go back in remembrance. Go back in commemoration. Go back in praise of the shoulders on which we stand. Raise high their names. Restore them to their rightful place in history, our herstory. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Come, let us commemorate Sarah Mapps Douglas and our foremothers. Come, let us celebrate ourselves.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No, 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 no. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes, until the killing of black men, black mother's son is as important as the killing of white men, white mother's son. Do you know we who believe in freedom cannot rest? I know that we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way that my struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. Now at times I'm gonna be quite difficult. You know that I'm bound to no man's word. If you know it, sing. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No, we can't rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. One more time we sing. We who believe in freedom cannot rest, cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. My name is Carolyn Elizabeth Maillard. I am the great-granddaughter of Robertina Clementine Maillard and Douglas Edgar Maillard. I am the granddaughter of Naomi Lindsay Maillard and Douglas Edward Maillard. I'm also the granddaughter of Ada Powell Parker and Lawrence Parker. Proudly and with much love, I say I am the daughter of Thomas William Maillard and Shirley Elizabeth Parker Maillard. Proud mother, good friend too, loving mamacita to Jordan Maillard Warre. And I am auntie, mommy to many youngins. Proud to be here, proud to be a Black woman in America, and proud to be a member of the vocal ensemble Sweet Honey in the Rock. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol Maillard. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Daughter of Bertel and Muriel Adams, granddaughter of Myra and William, Harry and Blanche, great-granddaughter of Mary Magdalene and Jane, two others whose names I do not know, great-great-granddaughter of Harry Adams Sr. I am Janice Adams. I'm your host and producer of this evening's program. I'm here because I am your sister friend, and I thank you for joining us this evening.
My name is Janet Dewart Bell. I am a Black feminist warrior for justice, an author, a professor, an activist, and the founder president of Lead Intergenerational Solutions. We stand on the shoulders of so many, such as the great Ella Baker, who did not rest in her quest for freedom and championed young people. She was called Fundi, a Swahili word for one who teaches the next generation. My books, Lighting the Fires of Freedom, African American Women in the Civil Rights Movement, and Blackbirds Singing, Inspiring Black Women's Speeches from the Civil War to the 21st Century, are part of the legacy of Sarah Mapps Douglas and the Female Literary Association. I am the daughter of Willie Mae Neal, born in 1917 in rural Arkansas and denied formal education because she was Black and poor, but because of her brilliance and determination and God's grace. Educated herself and was the most brilliant and beautiful person I have ever known. Her mother, Sophronia McKnight, just under 5 feet tall, small in height but large in spirit, was brave, bold, and fierce. She, along with my magnificent and kind grandfather, David McKnight, stood their ground and would rather die than take load to anyone, especially white racists. They lived with courage, honor, and integrity. My grandmother, to be almost 80. I am blessed in so many ways and want to lift up the names of two of my sister friends, Dr. Naomi Nightingale and Patricia Irvin. My late husband and partner, the prophet and Professor Derek Bell, was without peer. His words resonate today. While he proclaimed that racism is permanent, his was not a voice of surrender, but of hope. A clarion call for Black people to stay on the case. Stay woke, if you will. Never give up, give out, or give in, or let others define or limit us. I am here to bear witness to my foremothers and forefathers and to extol Black greatness, our determination, and our ultimate victory for all humankind. We are still here for such a time as this.
Daughter of Marie Whiteside, granddaughter of Ethel Perchuk, my name is Karen Falcon, and I'm here because I'm your sister friend. I'm also here as a founder of Jubilee School to introduce you to the Jubilee students, one graduate and one present student. And the graduates, when they were in 6th grade, along with their classmates, created a publishing company they called Jubilee Voices Publishing House. Quote, unraveling our true past telling the truth about history and society. This past summer, this group of alumni were offered the job of teaching second and third and fourth grade students about writing and publishing books. The students were also working on a project to honor ancestors buried in Eden Cemetery, a historic Black burial ground. The alumni helped the younger students write letters and poems to those they later paid tribute to at their grave sites. One of the ancestors the students celebrated at Eden was Sarah Mapps Douglas. I'd now like to introduce you to Noah and Benjamin Lindo, who also happen to be my grandchildren.
Dear Sarah Mapps Douglas, you were an intelligent and strong woman. You worked hand and foot to gain respect for Black women. You had a spark of light since you were born. You were a multitasker. You accomplished many things at once. As a teacher, you gave lectures, important lectures, helping the Black community. And that led to you becoming the founding member of the biracial female anti-slavery society. You also taught at a school organized by your mother and James Fortin. You continue to do amazing things even after your passing.
Your power lives on for Black women's rights. We're honored to learn about your journey and fight for your legacy. Thank you, Sarah Mapps Douglas, from Jubilee Voices.
Thank you, Karen Falcon and the students of Jubilee School. I take heart from their presence. I am just struck as a historian that young people are so fueled by history. I know that their founder and head mistress has a lot to do with that, but not every student gets that benefit. Not every student is enamored of it in the same way. And it is a real privilege to have Ben and Noah and the family here with us, because it is a sense of what is possible for other children if they too are only given the seed and the opportunity. Tonight we're here together. It is indeed a privilege to be here with you. I first came into contact with the story of Sarah Mapps Douglas almost 20 years ago when I wrote my book, Sister Days. And every time I talked about it, I would get, oh, Janice, come on, you know. In fact, I even was one of the people who worked to make Seneca Falls a real National Historic Landmark and everything else. But more and more the question gnawed at me. More and more I decided that I needed to find some of the absolutely primary source documentation so that it would be incontrovertible that on December 3rd, 1831, these women who had written their constitution between September 17th and September 20th of 1831 had actually had the temerity to publish it in the Liberator, the abolitionist anti-slavery newspaper. They did so, I want to make it very clear, at peril of their lives, not only for the insistence, and presumption was the easy part, but the insistence that Black people should not demonstrate an intellectual sense of their own worth. And so instead, they were summarily destroyed almost. And indeed, when white women joined them, what happened was white men of power and privilege at that time did not want that to happen. And so on May 17th, 1838, when those women were having a women's rights convention in Philadelphia at the brand new state-of-the-art Pennsylvania Hall, a mob of men crossed state lines to come to Philadelphia and set the place on fire with the women fleeing for their lives. That is what we are talking about. That is the courage and the commitment. They did not give up. And we cannot give up on them because they did not give up on the possibility of us. That's why we're here tonight. I thank you for being here. I thank you. Each and every one of you has brought your talents. Each and every one who has brought your spirit. Please put in the chat. We have raised, and we will continue tonight to raise the names of those who made our lives possible. Please, in the chat, raise the names of your own family members. When you hear something that we say, please think of what is going on that's powering your own life. Share it if you can, and if you don't want to share it at this moment, simply give it the space and the grace it requires, and know that that is what we are putting into the universe tonight. I thank you. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. One last point I want to make is that what propelled these women to do what they did is that just 3 weeks before, Nat Turner had led the Great Rebellion against slavery. And Pennsylvania, a state or commonwealth that had once been a haven for banning slave catchers, became instead a haven for trying to ban Black people, period. I know that I am not the only one who will see some parallels in our time. All right? But that was the impetus that made them say, no, we as women have to stand up and speak for ourselves. And that is the impetus that brings us in their name and in their legacy and in thanks tonight. Littorial Faison, thank you for raising your voice.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Why don't you walk with me while I'm on my pilgrim journey? I want Jesus to walk with me. For sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Daughter of the Virginia South, native of Southampton County, Virginia, granddaughter of Shirley and Sammy Williams, Erlene and Jake Griffin, great granddaughter of Margaret and Henry Ward Beecher Green, Fanny Corbett and James Brown, mother of Carl, Kendall, Caleb, wife of Carl. My name is Dr. Latorial Green Williams Faison, poet, author, and assistant professor at Virginia State University. I'm here because I believe in freedom, because without it, I cannot rest. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Latorio. Beautiful. And I am the daughter of Jesse Smallwood Veal and Joseph Veal. I am the granddaughter of Elizabeth Smallwood and the granddaughter of Elmira Veal and the great-granddaughter of Katie Smallwood and the great-great-great-granddaughter of Phyllis, two Phyllises, really, on my mother's side and my father's side. So I come here with the urgency of honoring not only my people, but those women who have been so dedicated to our freedom and our rights. I am Joanne Gabin, the executive director of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. I was the former founder and executive director of the Furious Flower Poetry Center. I am also extremely happy to know that Wintergreen is in the legacy line from these courageous women in the Female Literary Association of Philadelphia. And of course, their leader, Sarah Mapps Douglas. I was talking with Janice this morning and I said, Lucille Clifton has written a poem that intuitively understands the struggle that these women knew about 193 years ago. So I wanted to read that poem. The poem is the famous and beloved "Won't You Celebrate with Me?" Lucille Clifton, born in 1936, left us in 2010. Won't you celebrate with me what I have made into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay. My one hand holding tight my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Lucille Clifton knew about the danger that Audre Lorde talked about. Audre Lorde said that Black women and women in general are powerful and dangerous.
Ha!
And I know that the Wintergreen Women, because we have a collective that has been going on for now 37 years, we have braided together and we have strength, power, and courage because of that togetherness. And I can only think that I am so pleased that we are following in the legacy of these women from the 1800s. I was so inspired this morning that I wrote a very short haiku for the women in the Female Literary Association. And it simply says, "The women gather, not like lotus in a pond, but wasp from their nest." Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
That was beautiful. I am so pleased to also be a member of the Wintergreen Collective. I am the daughter of Beverly Moorhead and Lloyd Moorhead. I am the granddaughter of Kate Benjamin and Seal Ann Footman. I am the mother of Talib Kweli and Jamal Kwame Green. I am the grandmother of 6 children and the great-grandmother of 1. My name is Brenda Green, and I am here because I'm committed to the work needed to sustain the legacy of our writers, our poets, our scholars, our artists, and our musicians. They are our griots and our truth tellers, and we must continue to celebrate them and to say their names. I'm also professor of English and founder and executive director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College. And I want to thank you, Sister Janice, for bringing us together in this special and very sacred space. We need this more now than ever. I want to thank all of you for being here to celebrate the legacy of Sarah Mapps Douglas and the co-founders of the Female Literary Association of Philadelphia. Toni Morrison was committed to providing sites of memory in her literary work. And that is the work we do at the Center for Black Literature. Founded in 2002, our mission has been to ensure that Black writers throughout the African diaspora are supported, and that the public and the world deepens their knowledge about the vast amount of literature produced by Black writers and about the complexity of their work. We also carry out the legacy of the late John Oliver Killens, who was a visionary novelist, literary activist, screenwriter, and institution builder, who spearheaded the first National Black Writers Conference at Medgar Evers College in 1986. Through our center, we celebrate poets, scholars, essayists, fiction writers, and all those on whose shoulders we stand. We host conferences, readings, writing workshops, forums. We have a book club, a radio series, and a youth program. We publish the Killens Review of Arts and Letters in the name of John Oliver Killens. And we also publish journals representing the stories of our youth through our youth program, where we bring teaching artists into the classrooms who work with students to create their own stories and plays and poems. We also have created a workshop for our elders, those many who came of age during World War II. They've published 5 journals. They always present at our National Black Writers Conference. And we've also documented our work through a digital exhibition that is located on our website. It features the writers and programs going back to 1986, and also the work of the Center for Black Literature. We give awards to writers in fiction, poetry, scholarship, and institution building. We've honored many writers, but just to name some of our female writers: Toni Morrison, Sonia Sanchez, Gwendolyn Brooks, Edwidge Dondercat, Paul Marshall, Tracy K. Smith, Alice Walker, Bernice McFadden, Marie Golden, Dr. Margaret Burroughs, Octavia Butler. Those are few. At a conference, Dr. Hakeem Mahabudi talked about needing book people. And this is the work we do at the Center for Black Literature. We are book people. And it's so important that we do this work in this era where our books are being banned and censored, where people are not able to hear the stories of writers, where we are continuing to face threats to our democracy. We need our writers more than ever. We need to celebrate them. And we need to show that they have to do more than survive. We have to do more than just survive. We have to thrive. And we can thrive by looking at the stories and the work of our writers. So I celebrate you, and I will do all I can to make sure that the Toni Morrison Bench by the Road project survives and is sustained and is built in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Hi, I'm Naya. I'm the sister of Lois, the cousin of Lucretia, the daughter of Dolores, the granddaughter of Anna, the great-granddaughter of Daisy, the great-great-granddaughter of another Anna. And I'm here because my friend Janice and my sister Lois invited me to be here. And my offering is just to share with you some work that I've been working on about Mother Atlantic is the ocean of sorrows, where we can still hear the wails of enslavement echoing from Middle Passage. I'm working towards catalyzing a conversation in cloth between the Akan of West Africa, the Taino of the Caribbean, and the Celtic British people of the United Kingdom. Is there a way, I'm hoping in my work, to have textiles, fabric that simultaneously acknowledges Britain's historical role in the trauma of enslavement and proceeds to offer compassionate reconciliation among these three people, one of which I'm crafting culturally inspired textiles designs that merge authentic imagery with modern elements. Thank you. Oops, stop the share.
Braiding number 3. Braiding, cornrowing my daughter's hair like I'm sure my mother did. Her mother did hers. An older sister did hers after my mother's mother had died. I'm sure that my great-great-grandmother's mother stroked her daughter's African-raised crop of hair, jungle vines, lovingly caring to nourishly nurture, maintain, and provide, weaving thick ropes of hair. I try to think about the line of ancestors that did as I did. Child at her lap, by her knees, or crouched between agile poised fingers, braiding hair. It boggles the mind thinking back, trying to recreate the multi-images. Running quickly to the bedside of my baby, rocking her back to sleep, held tenderly to my bosom after a midnight's nightmare, or a scary need to know that mommy was still there to quell the tears. Calm. I think of my mother's mother's mother, living in fear of not being able to do just what I did, comfort her child, might be sold in auction, still a slave. And yet, as I wash and clean, cook and keep hearth and home, I watch my daughters. Seeds of hope for tomorrow crawl, waddle, walk, run, jump, play. Through all the stages of childhood, I remember well. Again and again, I try to recreate the pretty, personal, multi-visual images of me at my mother's knee. My mother at her mother's knee. My mother's mother's mother at her mother's knee. My mother's 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 mother at her mother's knee, all the way back until I can no longer see. Longing to know the beginning, see the regions, walk the lands, know well the lives and the lineage lines of mothers that labored for me.
Ooh.
When I sometimes wonder why we live to die a short span, each to her time. And when I get tired or weary from growing older, living, mothering, while still remembering the joys of a child, I struggle on. Muster strength, cling to pride, grandmothers. Generations back until I can no longer see. Your hope goes on, grandmothers. Right now through me and my seeds. And I feel you great, 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 great grandmothers in your time. Love you, remember you, know you well, keep and fuse dimensions each time we do the same things again, past with present, life with history, deed with deed. Mothering, same as you did years ago. One day, my daughter may have a daughter at her knee, braiding hair, mothering, fusing, and I'm pretty sure remembering me. Daughter of Lillian and Samuel, granddaughter of Beatrice and Janie Mae, great-granddaughter of Patience and Lizzie, and because of the enslavement process, great-great-granddaughter of only Mary. I come bringing you greetings, Kamika Williams Witherspoon, remembering that mothering and educating our children is a political act too. I am, because of all those mothers and all of your mothers, and we will continue on.
Beautiful.
And I am the one who has to follow Kamika, my BFF. I am the daughter of Dolores and Edwin, the granddaughter of Annabelle and Helen, the great-granddaughter of Della Clara Brockman Moses. I am Lois Moses. My mission in this life, my contract with Olodumare, is to reclaim the primacy and divinity of African women, one, through celebrating and venerating our sheroes and ancestors' sacred sacrifices. My offering is a poem that I wrote titled, Will They Clone Little Black Girls?, which is a narrative that reflects on African women's ability to transform and thrive in the worst of circumstances. I believe they provide the blueprint for our survival and how we come to know thyself. Will they clone little Black girls who won't die but fight? Will they clone little Black girls who supplement stamina for endless struggles to write? Will they clone little Black girls like Asada, Sonia, Tubman, knowing what they know? Will they clone little Black girls like Nikki, Zora, Mommy, grandma, who orchestrate transmutation as they go under cloaks of duplicity and breaches staggering. Rhetorical, I know. Will they clone little Black girls like Billy, Betty, Ida, Winnie, if it means ceasing myopic views of sturdy women, microscopic holograms chided with allegories binding ties and myths truth to tortured souls? Will they clone little Black girls with naps, dreads, locks, lost eyes, and fantasies far too Black, regrettably female, defeminized, fatal? Will they clone little Black girls to be reminded of savagery, brutality, rape, and bartering amongst nasty founders and forefathers, inequality, inequity? Will they clone little Black girls like Sojourner, Rosa, Fannie Lou, Frances Ellen, Maxine, Angela, who brave, notwithstanding ghettos, guns, gloom, doom, distracted and detracted mothers, mothering who staved unequivocally and persevered, erasing all doubt of concession, digression, misconception, and their wonder? Will they clone little Black girls like Nzinga, Hatshepsut, Afet Hathor, who shared blood and legacy of queens, Netshas, knowing that they know from where they come, denomination, replication, rebirth, and regeneration? Will they clone little Black girls with the integrity of legacy? Little Black girls like me that won't die but fight. Little Black girls like Kamika that won't die but fight. Little Black girls like Helen, like Ursula, like Sana that won't die. And all of you that won't die, because we're gonna fight. Will they clone little Black girls? I know that's right.
Woo. Yeah, fire. And Janice, you want me to follow that? I'm supposed to follow Lois. So I am the daughter of June Irene, the granddaughter of Martha and Mary, the great-granddaughter of Florence, Elizabeth, Millie, and Emma May, who was half Blackfoot Indian. And my mother, I have to just talk a little bit about her because of what she has given to me. She was a word scholar and a writer, the kind of writer, the kind of word scholar that could do the New York Times crossword puzzle with a pen. She was a Scrabble master. She could type 150 words per minute and shorthand at 50 words per minute. So her side gig was typing thesis papers for law students at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Her editing skills made her in high demand. Thus, she raised her daughter, Marianne Howland, a global citizen, a servant leader, a social justice warrior, entrepreneur, and a writer. I am also the mother of my favorite person in the world, my son, John Robert. But I want to pay a special tribute to 5 women who have also helped shape me into who I am today. Zora Neale Hurston, the first authors that I read as a little girl. Zora's book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, just ripped open a universe for me that was just flowed forever and ever in terms of my sense of self, my, the need for self-expression. And then Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and Nikki Giovanni's Ego Tripping, which became my mantra and gave me my self-identity. And it was Sonia Sanchez, who I know we're going to hear later from, who inspired my first haiku in elementary school that I submitted to a publication called Voice of America, which was published by the National Poetry Press in 1973. And in the introduction of this book, the editor writes, "Herein students demonstrate their varied interests and views on the more uplifting facets of our present world and its thoughts. The world may be in great turmoil.
Really, I would look
Humans
around.
may appear inhuman. Nations may be fighting, but our younger generation has faith that there is indeed ample room in the world for their ideals and dreams. This was written in 1973. So I just thought it was so apropos because it reminded me of my haiku, which was, wonders crowd my mind, taking over all my thoughts. I wish I knew why. That was inspired by Sonia Sanchez when I was 12 years old. And then the other woman that I have to pay tribute to is Janice Adams, my mentor and my friend, who continues to inspire me to write. And not just me, but also my son. In fact, she's the superhero behind my son's first book, The Art World of Magzolo. It's a book, it's a personal expression where he reveals his unvarnished truth about coping with his own mental health and living with different abilities, and his mission to redefine ability in a society obsessed with ableism, and his hope for creating a more compassionate and loving society. My son has cerebral palsy and has had to cope and deal and become a warrior in his own right, just to deal with the challenges of being an African American male in a country that has inherited the legacy of slavery, and in his journey to become a righteous man. So I, the my mission. So the reason why Janice asked me to be here today is to talk about my mission as a Black woman, raising our sons to be good husbands, to be great lovers and protectors and warriors for Black women. I'm raising my own son, helping him to realize his dream for a successful career, and a dream that includes finding his queen and being a good father. My mission is to prepare him to be a righteous man worthy of his queen. And my first book that I wrote, inspired by the women writers that I mentioned before, is Warrior Rising: How Four Men Helped a Boy on His Journey to Manhood, which is about raising a boy without a consistent father figure in his life. And as an African American male, again, with this legacy of slavery and racism in our country, born prematurely, and as a result of his cerebral palsy, he's had to be a true warrior. And at age 13, I gave him a Black mitzvah, a rite of passage designed to give him the benefit of a circle of kings, men who could answer the questions that I felt as a woman I might not be able to answer. And one of those men in his circle of kings is my brother, his uncle, who shared with him something that I want to share with you, which I thought was such a beautiful tribute to women. And my son had asked him, how do you know when you have found the right woman? And my brother's answer to that was, there are two significant moments when you know she is the one. The first may be the moment you discover that you are in love. The second is when you know you are ready to commit to that love. That could take one day, months, or sometimes years. For me, it took several years. Like a warrior who has chosen his mate, I felt there are certain demands and achievements to prove to yourself and to your mate that you are prepared to be a husband and potential father. I dare not ask a queen to be my bride unless I do everything required to be her king. My brother's a beautiful man. But so I wanted to surround my son with men who held the values of what it means to be not only a warrior among men, but a warrior among women. And my offering is, my book is available on wherever you buy your books, but I'd like to give a gift of a signed copy to the first 5 people who asked for it, who have joined this call. And I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here. And also, by the way, encourage anyone who's an aspiring writer on the call that Janice provides coaching, writing coaching, and has an upcoming seminar coming up in January, I think. I encourage you to sign up because she's really a genius and she's so very generous. Thank you, Janice, for inviting me.
Thank you, Marianne, so much. What can I say? I'm rarely speechless, as my daughters will tell you, but I am today. So thank you so much. Before we go to the next section, I wanted to use this opportunity to thank those people who are making it possible for us to see each other and be with each other and share this extraordinary outpouring and the offerings that we are benefiting from tonight. And so I ask for 2 people who have not yet spoken to join us and to join the circle with the stories of their lives, their legacies, and who they are descended from. Chip Williford, he has been managing all of us and keeping us on track here, and thank you, Chip, for that. Chip, who are you, and why have you decided to join us today?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Janice, and thank you so much, Helen Higginbotham, for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. What you're doing is really wonderful. It touches my heart and my spirit. I have a wonderful mother. I am the son of Juanita and Andrew Williford, the grandson of Annie and James Williford, the great-grandson of Sam and Ludella Williford, and the great-grandson of James and Jane Williford. I am from the Yoruba tribe, and I'm just, again, so happy to be here. I am the director of Poetry Street and Poetry Street on the Road. We meet every last Saturday in the Riverhead Public Library and also on Zoom. I'm also an executive board member of the NAACP Eastern Long Island branch, and we are currently initiated a scholarship for Suffolk County Community College, an endowment scholarship, and that's the school that I went to. So I'm very proud about that. And also, I'm a facilitator for Multicultural Solidarity. We do friendship circle conversations on race. And again, I'm just so happy to be here, and I uplift the beautiful women in my life. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. And Matt Mixon, are you here? Would you please tell us who you are, where you are, and why you have decided to join us this evening?
Thank you, Janice. I am here in very cold Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am a digital storyteller, a photographer, and a history chaser. I am the son of Lenore and Matthew Mixon and the grandson of William Mixon and the great-grandson of Lewis Mixon. And I have been chasing them through time. And thanks to DNA, I've had great fortune. On my mother's side especially, I'm back quite far. The earliest birth I can document is 1699. They're not all of color, but they don't have to be. So I'm happy to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you all for coming. I'm just going to read this brief section from my book because it is about the tapestry of lives. Yes, we are meeting because of all that Sarah Mapps Douglas and her co-founders gave us. But we are also here for the continuity and the thread. And what a herstory we have made. What stories our lives tell. And ain't I a woman? Sojourner Truth is said to have rallied, challenging the narrowed eye of a norm. With higher expectation, we have conjured a womanhood others have dared attempt to deny and made real the worlds we would behold. It's quite a legacy, as you'll see and hear this evening. These odes to our womanhood. I remember a conversation with an administrator asked why her school district was so reluctant to include African American history and multicultural perspectives in the curriculum. She seemed caught off guard. The truth is, she confided, parents and teachers are afraid that if they tell the children the truth, they'll think their ancestors were bad. True story. And I couldn't help thinking of all those children so long sacrificed at a blockade of lies that others might be raised isolated from truth. I saw the children and the child within. I heard the voices of the children and those of 80 who remained but a child of God. From them came my inspiration. I knew why I wanted to write, but it was not until I looked into the mirror of memory that I knew what I needed to write. On the days when my grandmother would tire, her stories used up, her memories dim, I remembered how she would croon to herself, I'd write a book, but who would read it? And yet go on. From the collectivity of the stories of our grandmothers untold, and for their very great and very grandchildren, here, I hope, is the book they would have written. Here is the power, their strength, their pain, their ways, and their better days. Here are their woes and their problem solving, their laughter and their haughty, naughty ways. Here too are our stories, the ones we would keep in our hope chests, woven into tapestries, knowing that we today are the ancestors of tomorrow. And as you read of these, our sister days, as you hear of these, our sister days, as we indeed speak of these, our sister days, somewhere beyond our grandma's smile, somewhere our grandpas glance upon the docks of a day and look to the horizon their dreams helped paint. For you to read, these are the stories they have told me to keep, the measure of our days, inspired moments to alter the view on both sides of the blockade, to alter the cadence of one who might not otherwise know that her place in this land was staked in Jamestown, bought and paid for in 1619, long, long years ago, that her source has been channeled from a river called the Nile, her wisdom dredged at Timbuktu. Yes, my sister love, so begin our days. Yes, my brother love, so begin our days. There was Boston, Nicodemus, Mississippi, always Mississippi, New York and Nantucket, and on and on, and yes, so we go on. My dear sister, Dr. Janetta B. Cole.
Beloved sisters, and our two righteous brothers, Chip Williford and Matthew Mixon. I am the great, 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 great granddaughter Havana, Majijin, Injai. A 13-year-old Senegalese girl of royal lineage who was captured, shackled, brought to that place off of the coast of West Africa, Senegal, Goree Island, pushed through the door of no return, where I have stood and wept, put into the hull of a ship under the most inhumane of circumstances. Unto Majijinjai, off-boarded in Havana, Cuba. From a place that is within 20 minutes of where I now live in Florida. A plantation called the Kingsley Plantation went a British enslaver by the name of Zephaniah Kingsley. He went to Havana, Cuba for the explicit purpose of doing what ought to be unspeakable and certainly never done. He went to Havana, Cuba for the explicit purpose of buying human beings. He saw Anta Majijinjai on the auction block and he bought her. And before they could reach the Kingsley Plantation in Florida, he had impregnated her. I am the great-granddaughter of Abraham Lincoln Lewis, whose photograph you see there in my library, who married Mary Frances Sammis, the great-granddaughter of Anta Majijinjai and the British enslaver Zephaniah Kingsley. Abraham Lincoln Lewis and Mary Frances Sammis Lewis were the grandparents of my mother, Mary Frances Lewis Betch. I am Johnetta Betch Cole, the daughter of Mary Frances Lewis Betch and John Thomas Betch Sr. I am the sister of Marvine Oshun Betch, known among environmentalists as the Beach Lady. And I am the sister of John Thomas Betch Jr. I am an anthropologist. Yes, I am like Zora Neale Hurston, who dares to believe that the stories of our people are no less worthy than the stories of all people. I'm a former college professor. I am the president emerita of Spelman and Bennett colleges, the only two historically Black colleges for women in our nation. I formerly worked as the director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African Art. And yes, I proudly worked and will continue to work in this space of diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. And so here I am, the great-granddaughter of Abraham Lincoln Lewis, who you see there, and just below him, a portrait, Mary Frances Sammis Lewis. But perhaps most of all, I am the child of all who the great W.E.B. Du Bois called the people of the darker hue. My beloved sisters, one of my very favorite African proverbs says, "It does no harm to be grateful." And tonight I am intensely grateful to my precious and powerful sister friend, Janice Adams, for having the outrageously wonderful idea of convening us at such a time as this. Now, I do not have a crystal ball. I do not have a crystal ball into which I was able to look on a particular night not long ago when the results of the 2024 presidential election were made public. But I think I'm safe in saying that the results of that election were not what each of us hoped for, prayed for, worked so hard for. But my dearest sisters and the two righteous brothers, there are no words more appropriate for us to say tonight, to sing tonight, and to use as our call to action tonight than the very words, I mean the very words that we heard as we first convened. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. As many of you, perhaps all of you know, this song is called Ella's Song. It was written by our late beloved sister, Bernice Johnson Regan, and performed by Sweet Honey in the Rock, the group she founded in 1973. The song honors Bernice Johnson Regan's mentor, the incomparable civil rights activist, Ella Baker. What a blessing. There's simply no other word. What a blessing it was for us to hear Elizabeth Maillard sing that song for our convening. I want you to listen once again, my sisters, to some of the words in this song from which we can receive the strength, the courage, the inspiration to carry on at such a time as this. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. Thank you, Carol, Lynn, Elizabeth, Maylard, for singing that song tonight. The lesson of this verse to me is that if we ever in our movement needed to be intergenerational, it must be so now. A movement of the young who can go so fast, says the African proverb, and the elders who know the way. And hear these words from Ella Song. I am a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I will bow to no man's word. In my view, one of the clear messages from the 2024 presidential election is how so many in our country crave hyper masculinity. But we, my sisters, must be a force against it, because hyper masculinity, misogyny, sexism, whatever language you wish to use, is not good for women, for men, for people of any gender or gender identity, of any race, of any class, of any form of ableism or disability. I didn't mean ableism, of any form of disability. It is not good for people of any and all diverse forms. And finally, hear these words from Ella Song. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light to just shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. When I think about what brought us as a people through the incredibly inhumane years of enslavement, through the years of Jim and Jane Crow segregation, it was surely that we learned how to work collaboratively against tyranny. And so, my sisters all, and yes, the two righteous brothers with us, we who believe in freedom, and surely we do, we cannot and will not rest until it comes. Let us all say amen and women too.
Amen. Amen.
Shay.
Amen. Hey, women.
Amen, and a woman too. Dr. Irma McLaurin.
Okay. My mother, called Benny Pearl, was born in Red Clay Country of Alabama. She was the daughter of Mamie Lee Jones of Lower Peachtree, Alabama, my maternal grandmother and daughter-in-law of Lula Bell, my paternal grandmother of Georgetown, Mississippi. The names of my great-grandmothers, my great-great-grandmothers, are lost in the tragic history of enslavement. These gray women with braided hair, whose rounded shoulders sag with weary eyes wrestling with oblivion, these women shall be our salvation. My name is Dr. Irma Pearl McLaurin, born a poet in Chicago, who became an anthropologist in Massachusetts, mother of Zena Carlota Pearl and Antonio Maceo. I slip my mother's name on like a glove and wonder if I will become like her absolutely. Each year I return home a salmon caught in an act of survival. I search my mother's face neatly carved in obsidian and wonder how much of myself do I owe this woman whose name I've swallowed like a worm, her inner soul transferred through the eating. I slip my mother's name on with wonder and become like her, absolutely. I am here as a Black feminist anthropologist, a poet, the proud editor of the award-winning 25th anniversary edition of Black Feminist Anthropology, Theory, Politics, Praxis, and Poetics, with the foreword by Dr. Janetta Cole, a Zora scholar who walks in her dust tracks, mentored by Dr. Janetta Cole in anthropology and taught by poetry by Sister Sonia Sanchez. I'm a former professor of anthropology, a past president of Shaw University, and so much more. I am here as your sister friend with a mission to make Black women visible and heard through the Irma McLaurin Black Feminist Archive that I established at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, that is dedicated to archiving and preserving our contributions as Black women, as Black femme, as Black trans, as Indigenous women, and for our allies. So what are you going to do with your stuff? And if you're ready to answer that question, I'm going to ask you to contact me at blackfeministarchive@gmail.com, and I'm putting it in the chat. All of us carry an archive inside that must be protected and preserved. And that's what I'm doing in the Black Feminist Archive that is dedicated to us. And what I've heard over time is that as I talk to Black women across the nation, but also internationally, the first thing they say is, well, I didn't think anybody would be interested in my stuff. And I am here to tell you that everything we do is precious and it needs to be preserved. So if you want to know what are you going to do with your stuff, then I'm asking you to get in touch with me. And I've put a link to the article about the Black Feminist Archive. I'll put a link to the page. We are collecting the materials of activists, artists, ordinary women. This is not a star archive. This is not for marquee people. This is for ordinary Black women, the kind of women who founded, these kinds of associations that we're celebrating tonight, who didn't see themselves as extraordinary at the time. They just did what needed to be done. And so I'm just doing what needs to be done by creating this archive for us.
Daughter of Mary Erlene, granddaughter of Carrie, great-granddaughter of Mary Magdalene. I am Elle Cole, mother of Layla and Maya. I am an author, and I'm here because I'm your sister friend. Today, I'd like to share, what do we tell our daughters? Today, we must remain steadfast in honoring the legacies of those who've gone before us, teaching our daughters to carry the torch forward. Now, more than ever, we need to become active advocates in our schools, hospitals, workplaces, and beyond. We must speak up on behalf of those who are medically fragile, those who have sickle cell disease, those who are less fortunate, and those who are dreamers but have trouble actualizing their goals. We have to teach our daughters how to collaborate, lead, and thrive, how to support and be sister friends to one another. The journey towards equality and equity, towards representation and opportunity is far from over. It is only beginning. This is not the time to waver. This is the time for us to teach our daughters resilience. We have to tell them, women, we have felt a deep collective loss. Yes, this hurts, but we were built to overcome. We have to instill in them the confidence to continue reaching for greatness, whether they dream of being doctors, CEOs, authors, legislators, or inventors. Our message must be clear. Your potential is limitless, but it requires effort, focus, and grit. Now is the time to get fired up. Now is the time to work harder, dream bigger, and demand better. Not just for ourselves, but for our communities. We must teach them the true meaning of sisterhood, show them that lifting one another is not just a kind act, but a necessary strategy for survival and success. We must remind them to build bonds that stand the test of time and struggle, to cheer each other on, and to rest in the strength of their shared purpose. And rest. Oh, how we must teach them to rest. In a world that often asks too much of Black women, we have to show our daughters that rest is not weakness, it is power. Finding peace in the midst of chaos is revolutionary. When rest seems elusive, we must help them find moments of stillness, to breathe, to reflect, to recharge, to practice self-care. As mothers, we must carry the dual responsibility of loving them fiercely and preparing them for a world that is not always kind. But if we teach them to hone their skills, cultivate their confidence, and claim their inner strength, there is no obstacle too great. The road to equality, representation, and opportunity is long, but it is worth traveling. Let's guide our daughters forward, not just to continue the legacy of all the women who have gone before them, but to build legacies of their own. Together, they will reclaim their destinies and shape a future that holds space for all of us. We're still in this fight, and our daughters will lead the way, not tomorrow, but today. The future remains bright.
I am the daughter of Charlotte Bailey Higginbotham, the granddaughter of both Ella Walker Bailey and Evelyn Robinson Price, and the great granddaughter of Ellen Bailey, who transitioned at the age of 104 and was one of the oldest people to live in Gloucester County, New Jersey, where I grew up. I am Helen Higginbotham. I am a Jersey girl who sleeps in Florida. I am the founder of When Black Women Gather, which is an organization that I founded long before the pandemic, but that was a lifesaver to many during the pandemic. And I'm so happy to see so many women on this call who are here by way of When Black Women Gather. When Black Women Gather is an organization that I founded to give space and voice to Black women where we could come together and be our whole selves with one another, to uplift one another. We needed that so much during the pandemic, and unfortunately, we find ourselves back in a space where we need it again. But as we can see from all the profound women who are on this call, uh, and who I don't even belong in the same ballpark with. I don't have any fancy poems or anything to say. I'm just Helen. But what we do know is that we are the strength that we need. We come together as one. And if ever we've needed to do it, it is now. And everybody on this call has given us the inspiration that we need to remind us of who we are. And there is no way that I could not be a part of an opportunity to sing praise and give recognition and honor to somebody like Sarah Max Douglas, who, thank you, Dr. Adams, for introducing me to her. I was not aware of her. I have often said I'm not a feminist because I didn't see it as a cause for as a Black woman, but now I will reclaim that and say I am. I will be a feminist in honor of her. I want to say that I'm not going to be long. I'm going to be brief here because I know everybody wants to hear from Sister Sonia. In this moment, I have to lift up my mother. I lost my mother at 26 years old. She was only 45. And in that time, so many women have stepped in to be the mother figure that I've needed. And I am so honored to say that when I need to talk these days, I even have the honor of being able to call on Sister Sonia Sanchez, and I appreciate that so much. A lot of the women on this call, I've had them on as guests, and I look to have some more of you on. Dr. Cole, I did not know that you too were sleeping here in Florida, so I will be looking you up to be a part of my village as well. I just want to say that tonight is a very special night. It's a night for us to remind ourselves of who we are. I'm going to put in the chat where you can get in touch with me. I hope that you will join to be a part of When Black Women Gather. And I'll put in the chat some of the things that we do that you can hop on to. And our slogan for When Black Women Gather is When Black Women Gather, amazing things happen. And this has been an evening, nothing short of amazing. And thank you all for supporting it. Thank you, Dr. Adams, for having the vision. And thank you, everybody who's come here to support this effort and celebrate us as Black women. Sister Sonia. She's mute. Can somebody please unmute Sister Sonia, please? Sister Sonia, you're muted. Is your son there with you? She's muted. Is her Sister Sonia, is your son there so he can unmute you?
Mom, you can unmute. You can unmute as the host.
I can't do it from here.
They don't let you do that anymore.
I don't have the access. Chip, are you able to unmute her?
No, they don't let the host do that anymore.
No, I
Because
sent a
people were,
message to her earlier to unmute. I think she went to get someone.
she did.
Ladies, you're doing an incredible job, and thank you so much for doing this because we will not rest until when?
Freedom
Until it comes, until freedom comes.
There we go. Here she
Here we
comes.
go. Let's see.
Gotta unmute her.
There we go.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi, Sister Sonia.
Hi, Sister Sonia.
Hello, how are you?
Love you.
Love you too. Me and Miss Vertigo. Right, with this weather. Oh my gosh. What an honor it is to be here and to hear us all and to see us all and to listen to herstory. We don't always listen to a lot of herstory, you know, or sometimes when we deal with herstory, it turns out to be history. But herstory is very important to our history, if you truly understand what I'm saying. I am very much moved by what we have said. I am not a person who is fearful, but I am going to say this, that this organization shall prove to be more and more important as we go along, because this country is going to become much more dangerous than it is today. I don't say that to make people be fearful. I don't say that to negate what we hear and have heard here tonight. This is good stuff we're listening to, but it only works if we work. It only works if we drop all the secret smells that we have about each other, my dear sisters, and my two brothers here. The other day we were talking to some people and gossip arose. And I said very gently, they said in the FBI report that the thing that destroyed Marcus Garvey's organization was gossip. Yeah, gossip. So here we are, not gossiping. Here we are talking about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be human, what it means to walk upright as a human being, which is not easy, because my entire life, your entire lives should also be about what does it mean to be human. It's a question that we have not answered, because as you can see, what has happened here in the United States of America and around the world, and more wars, populating our eyes, our throats, our tongues, our hands. At some particular point, we've got to truly understand that our role, as I listen to all the things about the mothers and the great-great-great-great-great-grandmothers and the great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers, I thought about them. I think about them every night before I go to sleep. I don't know some of them. I barely knew my grandmother who raised me and my sister until she died when I was about 5 years of age. But she was a woman in a household where I was considered always the child who was always in trouble. And, who was always going outside in a little yellow pinafore and coming back home at lunchtime with it torn, because I had decided to climb a tree like everybody, like the boys were climbing trees outside. But my sister came back in daintily yellow. Nothing had moved at all. There was no dirt at all on her little apron dresses that we used to wear in those days. Her hair, her braids were in shape, whatever. My braids were out all over my head. And my aunt said, tis, 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 Sarah, and Sarah. This girl, look at her. Look at her. She goes out pretty and she comes out all dirty. And Mama would say, just let the girl be. She'd be all right. She gonna stumble on gentleness one of these days. I don't know if I have stumbled on gentleness. I look for it every day. I look for it in the eyes of the mothers and the teachers and the children who are following us. I look for it in the eyes of the young people, the ones who are on the stages of America now, 18, 19, 20, all the way to 45. I look now
at this place called America, for the gentleness of those people who have decided to say simply, I am here, I am powerful, I will not change everything. But what I do know is I look for it in our eyes, not in these conferences at some point that we decide to just, write the things that are beautiful. And I think, oh, thank God, let us hear that again. Let us be confirmed again, in our herstory and history. Let us move forward as African men and women, Black men and women who have said simply, I will will us into the world that we want, that we need for this earth to survive. And so one of the things that I want to do two things. The one for Sweetheart in the Rock, but one that I did for Professor John Bracey, who was a colleague of mine. And I wrote a piece called Soon, Oh Soon, One Morning. And John Bracey had an amazing memory. You could call him up and say, John, I don't remember who said the following or what the direct quote was. And John would lean back on his eyes or on the telephone wires and tell it to you, and you write it down and say, thanks, John, I'll call you later on. But this is for John Bracey and his mother. She came from a long line of Du Boisian women, your mother, coming among us with parasol breaths, eyes iron and steel, allowing no frailty to accent her early life. She came from a bloodline of colored educator seekers, women and men who reconstructed themselves, kneeled down at the sound of freedom, answered life affirmatively, having learned how to dance around the calendar of Southern cells. Once again, April runs yellow with rain in Amherst. There are no Southern owls hooting on our northern fears. And I recall the last time I saw Helen Harris Bracey sitting on her memory in your house, John, her face twinkling as she leaned back on her eyes, and I saw all of our mothers coming over fields and sand, resurrecting color from a white scene, and I heard all of our voices crossing old rivers with iron legs, and I understood that we must all lay our bodies upon the grounds, rescue our eyes from mourning, perform wonders in a wonderless place. Soon, oh, soon one morning, Nangadef, Mama Bracey. How are you, Mama Bracey? We have taken up your songs and liberated ourselves. Nangadef, Mama Bracey. How are you, Mama Bracey? We have become camp followers of your blood. We have finally anchored ourselves at the beginning of your creation. Soon, oh soon, one morning, Nangadef, Mama Bracey, Nangadef, Mama Bracey. And that's a piece that I did on the occasion of her death, and Brother John's death also too. But one of the things that and I know that I remember when Sister Janice talked about doing this, and she said, we need it, don't we, Sonia? And I said, oh, my dear sister, we need this every day. In fact, we need to call each other every day. We need to assign one person to each one of us every day to get up and in the morning sing good morning to you. And how do you do? The trees, they are blowing. We know that it's you. Now go out and conquer the world, So at some point, maybe we can choose someone or someone can choose us. And every morning, I don't care if you are on the road, okay? I don't care if you are on a train, on a plane might be difficult, But the point is, as you go out into this morning air and evening air and the day's air, that we call someone to say, hey, I'm so glad you're walking on this earth. I'm so glad you is here. I am so glad that we're together. I'm so glad we dropped the secret smells when they laugh about us as women. Because what do women do? They talk about each other, whatever. No, we don't. Those of us who have understood and learned, we teach each other. We love each other. We hug each other. We say simply, hey, here I am. Okay, so what's with you today? What? You're crying today. Okay, good. I'm gonna cry with you. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cry louder than you. Okay, I'm gonna sound blank out your cries because your cries aren't gonna be that necessary today. I would pick up and take in your cries and run it through my body and let it come out as sweet honey in the rock, sweet honey. Sweet honey, as we go every day. And then when you finish crying, we're going to laugh. I'm going to say, girl, let me tell you a joke that my father used to tell me. There was just a joke that he told about the first Black pilot in America after World War II. And he talked about, people got on the plane, and they had told him to keep his door shut because they didn't want people to see that they had a Black pilot at that early. And so he forgot, left the door open. People sat down and pushed that little button, and and the flight attendant at that time, came up and said, "Yes, can I help you? Is it true that there is a Negro in the cockpit?" And as she rushed back in, she said, John, we told you, you had to keep the door shut. You had to keep the door shut. You have to keep the door shut so no one will see you. So John said, oh, don't worry, sisters, ladies, don't worry. I'll get on the intercom and say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Conyers, and I am here to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a graduate of Harvard University. I'm a graduate of Cornell University. I'm a graduate of Smith College. I am a graduate of all the colleges in America. I have 5 PhDs, I have 10 MAs. So if you would just settle down and calm down, I will see if I can get this big motherfucker off the ground. My father used to tell that, and I would fall out, whatever. That's not a curse. That is something that we laugh at, whatever. This is what he did. This is what he said. This is the music that my father made. My father, who was a drummer, my father, who was a school teacher, my father, who taught high school, my father, who at some particular point looked up and said to the world, okay, I'm going to take my daughters up north. I'm going to take them someplace where they get a little better education. The latter, I don't believe, because those sisters who came up every summer to do work, master's degree at Columbia, NYU, knew it as much as any teacher who was teaching in a place called New York City. But the point is simply that my father thought that it would be better for us to come north. But I regret having left those sisters who, if you did not get something right, would like make you eat lunch inside with her, right? And then say, let's go over that again. And because she lived next door to you in your Black neighborhood, she's not going to do it and tell mama, my grandmother, Sonia needs to go over some of this, okay? Help her, please. Mama couldn't help her, but the nieces who lived in the house could do that. I remember that. I remember that sometimes that I wake up in the middle of the night with tears, remembering my grandmother who looked at me, and I was the wild child. I was the non-beautiful child. My sister was so beautiful that every place that she went, people would get up, and I thought they would just like stretch their bodies out and let her walk on them, most especially the men. But I used to run outside and play and run and climb the trees and run with the brothers, whatever. And one day, one of the brothers said, I am the leader today. I am going to be the leader today. And they started to get in a fight. So we said, okay, look, why don't we choose the person? So they said, what are we going to do? I said, I know. In the room that I shared with my sister, there was this high window. And I said, when we got in my room, I said, see that? I climbed up on the window. I said, the person who can jump out and land safely will be the leader. And at that point, everybody ran back, getting ready to call my grandmother. And I jumped out. I hit it. I jumped too hard, and my knees hit the trees, and I fell down, and I got up a little bloody. And my aunts went out. See, look at her. She's not going to be a young lady. Never will she be a young lady. Yes, that's the truth, And so there I was, mama, with mercurochrome. Some of you might not remember mercurochrome, rubbing it on my knees. And then she would go and put another little pair of pants on for me. And she would say, are you ready to go play? And I said, yes, mama. And I went out and played and climbed trees, and learned about hide and seek and learned about riding a little tricycle down one of the highest hills there in a place called Birmingham, Alabama. By the time it got to the bottom, I had no control. It fell over, I fell over, but whoa, what adventure, what adventure, what adventure, what adventure. I want you to understand something, that no longer must we tolerate gossip about each other. No longer must we pass things amongst ourselves and say, did you hear about whatever? No, I didn't hear about it. But if we call her, we can talk to her and help her, and maybe she can get through this crap that is going on in the world called life at some particular point. Because we cannot be free until we free that which is inside of us sometimes, which does not move the way it should move. It should move smoothly. It should move and say, this is my sister. You hear that? This is my brother. You hear that? I don't talk against her. I don't say things about her that make her go and cry in her midnight hours. Here he is. Here he is. We are at a point in our lives that I had never thought that we would get here after all the work that we had done in civil rights, in the Black arts movement, whatever. We're at a point now, at some particular point, where we have people who are going to begin to tell us what they're going to do to us, how we must follow what they say. We're at a point in our lives at some point that is almost like at some point you feel like you're starting again. You're not, but it feels like that. Because we have people, who write things, against us at some point, at this point. But come on, people. Every day, choose a person to call every day and sing good morning to you. And how do you do? The trees, they are blowing. We know that is you will continue the work that all those people that we talked about, all our great grandmothers we talked about, and our great grandfathers we talked about, and it did not include gossip. It did not include, this idea that we can talk against people and then come and sit and talk about where we want to be, where we must be on this earth, my dear sisters and my brothers, is that we have finally begun to understand again that from this last election, that we must always wake up every morning and greet our sisters and brothers, with love and affection. Our children with love and affection. And if we have an argument, when they say, I've got an argument, go grab them. Shut down that argument. Shut down those lies. Shut down the mouth that wants to destroy us, because we are moving into a new century. We are moving so fast. Just think about how fast it goes, that it's Monday and before we turn around, it's Friday again. That is what has happened. That is how fast the earth has changed course now. It is moving that fast, and we got to stay fast with this brain that says simply, look, this is our land too. We belong here. We must always walk upright as human beings, as our dear sister did for Sweet Honey in the Rock. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield till I die. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield till I die. I had come into the city carrying life in my eyes amid rumors of death, calling out to everyone who would listen. It is time to move us all into another century, time for freedom and racial and sexual justice, time for women and children and men, time for hands unbound. I had come into the city wearing peaceful breasts, and the spaces between us smile. I had come into the city carrying life in my eyes. I had come into the city carrying life in my eyes. And they follow us in their cars with their computers, and their tongues crawl with caterpillars, and they bumped us off the road, turned over our cars, and they bombed our buildings, killed our babies, and they shot our doctors maintaining our bodies. And their courts changed into confessionals, but we kept on organizing, we kept on teaching, believing, loving, doing what was holy, moving to a higher ground, even though our hands were full of slaughtered teeth. But we held out our eyes, delirious with grace. But we held out our eyes, delirious with grace. I'm going to treat everybody right. I'm going to treat everybody right. I'm going to treat everybody right till I die. I'm going to treat everybody right. I'm going to treat everybody right. I'm going to treat everybody right till I die. Come. I say, come, you sitting still in domestic bacteria. Come, I say, come, you standing still in double-breasted loinies. Come, I say, come, and return to the fight. This fight for the earth. This fight for our children. This fight for our life. We need your hurricane voices. We need your sacred hands. I say, come, sister, brother, to the battlefield. Come into the rainforest. Come into the hood. Come into the barrio. Come into the schools. Come into the abortion clinics. Come into the prisons. Come and caress our spines. I say, come, wrap your feet around justice. I say, come, wrap your tongues around truth. I say, come, wrap your hands with deeds and prayer. You brown ones, you high yellow ones, you black ones, you gay ones, you white ones, you lesbian ones, you LGBTQ ones. Come, 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 come to this battlefield called life, called life, called life, called life. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield till I die. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield. I'm going to stay on the battlefield till I die. Come, 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 come to this battlefield called life. Life, life, our life, 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 our life, 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 our life, 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 life. What do I know? What do you know? All I know is that I've lived 90 years, and the years went so fast. And what I remember was going in to classrooms finally and looking at a classroom, looking at 40 and 50 people staring me in the face, at a place called San Francisco State. And I called on every ancestor that existed. And I called on the gods that exist also too. I said, help me, help me, help me to teach what I have learned, to teach what I know. Help me, help me, help me wherever you are, whoever you are in the universe. Help us to get to a point that we can say to the world, no, 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 no. You don't do that to us. We are these Africans. We are these Black folks. We are these people who have built countries. We are these people who built America. We are these people who built Washington, D.C. Don't look at me and say we are horrific people. What I do know, walking upright every day, saying simply that these sisters who have gathered here today, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Janice, for saying, what do you think? And I said, oh, sounds good, my dear sister. Let us get everybody together. Let us come together. Let us look at each other. Let us, when we hug each other, and although some of us are not hugging with this pandemic still, but when we do, but if you remember, elbow to elbow, or we bow down with praise and respect for each other, that I know we will get through this thing that we will be experiencing pretty soon in a very harsh way. Just remember, that's your sister, that's your brother. We don't talk about them. We don't laugh at them. If they're doing something wrong, we go to the house, have tea or whatever it is that you drink, and sit down and say, let me help you. Let us walk upright as human beings on this earth right now, right now. And so I send love and respect to all you sisters, all you great women, and the two brothers, for being here, for talking out loud, people, for saying what you believe. But then let's walk it. Let's do it. Let's translate it into our genes, into our mouths. And when we hear something coming out that's not quite correct about someone, let us swallow it or let us spit it out and say, hey, my dear sister, how you be? How you be, my dear sister? How you be? How you be, my dear sister? How you be? Love you.
Beautiful.
Sonia Sanchez, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Janice, right. I was singing my bill for suggesting that we do this, okay? All right?
Yes, yes. In fact, we've had this conversation about consulting fees before, and I think someplace we agreed that I'd pay you this time triple last time.
That's a big joke between us. I said, I'm going to sing you my bill now, okay? Right. Hey, people.
Oh, but
Can I just say, Sister Janice?
Yes,
You're
please.
so beautiful up there. Each one came up, right? And I just looked and I closed my eyes and I said, oh my Lord, look at us. Look at us. Beautiful women, hard-working women who will change. Come on, people. This thing coming up in January, we got to change what is coming in. We got to work together and make sure that we change it, that we continue on the road of this liberation and freedom, and then get each other's numbers. Janice would tell you that I always ask people when I get to know them, do you talk early in the morning, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? But I used to do that with all the writers, all my good friends who are dead now, who've made transition. And so therefore, I'll put that out there again. If you like talking at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, right, please, I'll give you my number. And I'd like to do that because some of the most beautiful things is when you're talking to a sister friend or a brother friend, and all of a sudden, out of that darkness, you see the light coming up. I mean, it is unbelievably fantastic. And the day begins again, and you say to your friend, hey, we got another day going here. Let's really do it. Let's really do it. Let's stay together. Let's walk together. Let's walk together. Let's be together. Let's love each other with a passion, that only I think sometimes we as African Americans, as people of color, know and understand. So this is Sister Janice, and this is all the other y'all that, you all just, when it's bad weather, I have vertigo, so I was stretched out on the other couch instead of stretching out here. But I heard all of y'all, and it is a joy. I don't know if we can talk to our dear sister, but, Janice, wouldn't it be great if we could have one of these every month or 2 of these every month? You know what I mean? And just begin the rinsing out of because we pick up negativity, that during the month, whatever, etc. But we can begin to, to rinse it out, pour it out, and then start another day, another month together, right?
It would be wonderful. I want to thank those of us who have joined together today. I also want to remind us that when Black women gather, amazing things do happen.
Yes.
And Helen Higginbotham did put in the chat that they do meet regularly. And I am hoping, I opened this talking about the past, daughter of, granddaughter of. Now I have the fuel that I need from this event to really think about the future. And I want to say also, mother of Io and Dara, stepmother to Raul, grandmother to Kyle, Kadar, Lake, Sky, and Sumiko, because that is the future. And I say those names not just because they're our family names, but because in your own family you have names. You have children whose names we should raise, and I urge you to put those names in the chat as well. When we began this, I had an idea that we just needed a moment of healing. And one of the things that I did was to put out a call that only today at 4:30 did I get the confirmation to absolutely say yes. And so we do have a future in terms of what next we might do as a group of women, I won't even call this an organization yet, but a group of women who have come together in joy, in bringing our spirit, our courage, our hopes. When Toni Morrison wrote her book, Beloved, she was asked, you know, what made you write this this book? And she gave the answer first that she always gave, which is that when there's a book you really want to read and can't find it, you have an obligation to write it. But she went beyond that. And our dear sister, Brenda Green, kind of alluded to, she didn't know that the call that I got today, but she knew that I was hoping for it. And she kept that in her sights. Toni also said that there is no place where you and I can go to reflect, to contemplate what happened, what was done to our ancestors. She said there isn't even a bench by the road. A group of scholars came together, formed the Toni Morrison Society, and one of their signature projects is the bench by the road. Today, there are 20 something. Carolyn Denard is with us, and if she'll put the number in the chat, that would be wonderful. But there are more than 24 benches by the road around the world. And come September 17th, 2025, thanks to the call and the note from Carolyn Denard today, we together will be able to put a bench by the road in Philadelphia for Sarah Mapps Douglas, for the Female Literary Association of Philadelphia, for ourselves, to have a place where we can sit, where we can reflect, a bench by the road where we can come together in honor of those whose lives, some of which were, honestly, I hate to say it, but just seized and squandered, but their spirits were not, and their spirits are in us. And so I am going to, as I close here, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. I deliberately did not charge for this. I didn't see how I could charge for this, but I am going to ask you to consider to make a donation to the bench by the road. And as of by Thursday, that will be on my website so we can start that process. I am also going to ask you to think about just the things that are important in your lives. I'm telling you some of the things that came to me in my corner. Please share those with us. I will send a thank you email to everybody for joining us today. And in that, maybe something will come about where we can share our perspectives. But for today, we who believe in freedom did not rest. We thank El Cole for reminding us as well that there are times when we must, but tonight wasn't one of them. We stayed the course and came together. Carol Maillard, thank you so much. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. You got us going. Janet Dewitt-Bell, Karen Falcon, and the Jubilee students, Littorio Faison, Joanne Gavin, Brenda Green, Naya Petrinos, Kamika Williams Witherspoon, Lois Moses, Marianne Howland, Janetta B. Cole, Irma McLaurin, L. Cole, Helen Higginbotham, Sonia Sanchez, each and every one of you. If I could call your names, I would, but I will not forget to call the names of our two brothers who came on in support of us. And them symbolically, yes, of the men who love the women, the men who keep us going as well. I want to thank Chip Williford and Matthew Nixon for being on our side and on the case today. Thank you, each and every one of you. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Rest, my dear sisters, for tonight. And thank you so much for being part not only of this evening, but for committing to our future.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No, 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 no. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.